Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Andrew with a very well-timed cough to start the show off. I want to welcome everyone to essentially what's part two of our Plasma Milestone live streams. Today, we're going to focus mostly on the NNS. We're going to talk about governance of the ICP protocol to begin with. And I want to welcome some extremely special guests to me. We have Laura from DFINITY, Andrew from DFINITY, and then we're going to talk with some guests from who are dedicating their time to governance and learn more about their efforts with Luca and Luis. How are you guys all doing? Everyone good?
Awesome.
Good.
Doing great.
I love it. I love it. Let's start, Andrew and Laura. We're going to just start to kind of recap 2024 because one of the big things that one of the big narratives within the internet computer ecosystem is the improvements to the governance system, and so let's just kind of start there. Run us through what your top 2024 highlights are for the NNS. Laura, I'm gonna give you the credit to start off first because I know you've been working tirelessly on this for years and years and years, and so I want to make sure you get the first speak here. What really stands out in 2024?
I think for me, what stands out is probably like the community activity. So, I mean, as we see with the guests that we have today, we really have people looking at our proposals now. And I mean, I also heard this feedback from other sides. Like, I got questions like, why is this in the code? And where are you using this method? I mean, from people not at DFINITY, right? So it's really good to see that it's getting more open, and I think this is really the direction we want to work towards. So I think this is really exciting. So in terms of features, I think we try to kind of also push a little bit in this direction, or features with this grants for voting neurons, right, that we have two representatives of here. So I think this was a great step in this direction. And then also with this periodic following confirmation to make sure that people are motivated to also consider these new alternatives and regularly have to kind of make a choice. So yeah, I think this is kind of like topic-wise, seeing this more activity and having these new features working in this direction is, I think, one big thing for me from the last year.
I love it. I mean, you mentioned two big things that we're going to dive deeper into in a little bit, right? The community, the governance grants program, as well as the periodic confirmation, which has been a conversation topic for a decent amount of time. So I love that we're going to finally be able to kind of recap all of that for everyone who's following along. And touching on just like that, I just want to double click that, right? Like the idea of like governance is work, and governance is community, and just getting really clear on that has been a phenomenal movement of everyone who participates in the NNS. Andrew, I know you think of this a little bit differently because you're more from the user experience of governance. So walk us through kind of in 2024, what was your highlight?
I think we can really summarize that 2024 as being the focus of user experience, because I think on the NNS dev side, in the first couple of years since Genesis, we were focusing on security a lot and making sure that the NNS dev supports all the governance functionality that we have, and both on the NNS side and also the SNS side. But because we tried to move fast and we had a lot of proposals submitted, the user experience took a backseat in the first few years. And I think 2024 and the coming 2025 is really a focus on making the user experience more seamless and then providing features that are requested by the community. So for example, if you haven't been on the NNS dev for the last couple of days, then you might be surprised to see a new addition, which is the new portfolio page. So if you go to the NNS now, the homepage shows your portfolio of neurons and tokens, which is something that really connects users with their, not just their tokens, but their neurons and how they can interact with the governance on their computer. And yeah, when many features that were released in 2024 were related to simplifying the experience.
Yeah, I know you guys were working pretty tirelessly as well. So I really want to say like the user experience has gotten better. I'm an active voting participant. And so as a user, I can just say thank you so much for making it as easy as possible for me to find which proposals need my attention, and also how my bags are doing in my NNS wallet. So I appreciate that. I am going to, let me pull up, add to the stage a Medium article here that DFINITY published last week. I'm going to drop this in the comments. I definitely recommend everyone go check this out to get a kind of a recap of 2024 and a slight look ahead of 2025. Laura, I want to know, let's dive a little bit deeper into the idea of public and private neurons. That was new last year. Can you give us some background on the thinking there and what the change was?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, so before that change, I think it wasn't really clear whether neurons are public or private. There was something in between. Like if you knew a neuron ID, you could get some information from the neuron. But for example, there's no way to know all the neuron IDs. So we have been kind of in this in-between state where, you know, if you were aware of that, you could kind of hide your neuron and keep it private, but it was also not a very obvious feature. So we kind of wanted to clean that up. We think it's very important to have a transparent governance transparency for where it's needed. So it's very important also for the verifiability of governance, but nevertheless give, you know, the neuron owners a choice, and hopefully a conscious choice that is not as hidden as it used to be before. So now basically a neuron can either be public, which makes it so that everyone can see everything about the neuron, or it can be private, which means that the ballots of this neuron will not be visible to others. And this is also very important for some people. You know, how in other governance systems, ballot secrecy is very important because people feel like they can vote more freely. They will not be influenced by others. So this is why generally this is considered an important feature of governance. And yeah, we wanted to combine like this advanced transparency, for example, for known neurons, right? They can now not only publish their vote, but also, for example, like who they follow and all the settings of their neuron. So if you want that, you can have that. But also if I'm maybe want to vote more freely and I feel like I can do that better with my private neuron, then I also have this choice. And I think also very importantly, this will now allow us to, in the next step, provide a neuron index to finally allow people to like see all the neurons while still maintaining the privacy for those who care about it, which I think is a very much asked feature from the community as well. So yeah, I think it's a great step towards this, while respecting everyone's wishes.
You're working me out of a job because that neuron index, it's going to be extremely powerful for anyone who wants to do some data and analytics on what's happening on the NNS. I know I get a lot of questions on that. And so that'll be definitely a nice, useful feature for bringing all that information up to the surface. Now, walk me through kind of the thinking of the design of the public and private neuron in terms of, you know, you mentioned a couple like pros and cons of making everything public, making everything private, and then in the end, you like landed on it should be the neuron owner who has the choice, right?
Yeah.
Kind of walk us through the thinking there.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, as I mentioned, I think the advantage of having the privacy option is that's usually considered an important feature of a governance system. I mean, in all the countries that you guys live on, I don't know how it's the case, but usually this is one of the most important things, right? That you cannot tell me how I must vote because you will not see whether I followed up on it or not, basically. That's the main idea. So I can really choose freely and I don't have to fear like any consequences. This is the main reason for privacy. Then the main reason for transparency, I think, is just because people are also kind of used to it on a blockchain setting, sometimes without having much more reasons. But also I think it's important, for example, for the known neurons. So now, for example, we gave these voting grants, right? So if I'm following someone, I want to be able to see that they actually did a good job, because if they don't, I will probably change my following to follow someone else. So there it's absolutely, I think, very important that you can see how they vote. Often we want to see actually more, right? We want to see, okay, they actually did some analysis and maybe that's on the forum, but definitely it's a very important part of it. Like, how did they actually vote? And is that in my interest? And then I'm probably happy to keep following them, but I might revise that and I need to make this decision based on something. So this is kind of why there are the two angles. And then, yeah, that's why we ended up in some use cases, one makes more sense, and in other use cases, the other makes more sense. But yeah.
I love it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're looking for a good middle ground and trying to optimize for both use cases. You mentioned following, and if people are new, the ICP ecosystem has ballooned in the last months and years, and so if you're newer to the environment, that idea of following might be new. Can you kind of walk through, if we take a step back to like the basics of the NNS and like what liquid democracy is and how it's implemented on the NNS?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point. So I think it's a very cool feature. So basically, as a voter, you can choose whether you want to vote yourself or whether you want to delegate your voting power to someone else. So, and I can do that for every single proposal basically there is. I can make the choice, do I want to make a decision here, or do I want to revert back to whoever I chose before? And we call this delegation of votes is what we call following. So sometimes we call like the people that I follow followees, which might be a bit misleading or confusing. But then we have this concept of known neurons. So neurons are just the governance participants. And then there are some neurons that have been, they need to be elected by the NNS to be listed as a known neuron. And then this allows me to find options who I can delegate my vote to for different proposals. And following is based on so-called topics. So you can imagine in real world, maybe, I know an expert on numbers like you, Kyle. So, for everything where maybe tokenomics or all of this is important, I might trust you to make good decisions, right? And for example, it's about meme coins or whatever, I would maybe trust Andrew. So, I can say like per kind of topic of things, I want to trust someone else to make a good decision for me. So unlike a traditional democracy, basically, I can really make a different choice for every kind of topic. I don't have to say like, this is my party, but I can say, on these topics, I align more with these people. On these topics, I align more with these people. So this gives me a lot of flexibility, I think. And, but still, so what people usually do is they make these following choices, but nevertheless, I can still vote directly or vote myself on all the proposals if my followees haven't voted before, because when they do, my vote will be automatically cast, basically. I hope that helps. It was a lot of information. We have some videos that hopefully explain more details to those who are new.
Before we move on, I want to add to this as well, because the liquid democracy, or what we call the liquid democracy that allows for vote delegation in the NNS and both in the SNS, is quite flexible. So it allows for things like CodeGov to exist, which is this layered vote delegation. So let's say me as a person who doesn't want to vote manually on, let's say, code upgrade proposals, I can follow CodeGov. And to ensure that CodeGov's internal system is not that it's one person that clicks yes or no, but their neuron follows others. So then they have a consensus between them that will cast a vote. And then this neuron that I'm following votes based on the consensus. So I vote based on CodeGov's consensus. And it's a nice layered system that allows people to have these little parties of voting members.
I'm imagining an actual party with, hats and twirlers and
yay and nay. Yes, and shouting.
Luca can tell us later whether that's how they do it.
It really is kind of a novel system, and we're going to talk about numbers real soon, but it's worth pointing out that the NNS as a DAO governs the entire protocol for the internet computer, and also the internet computer is well known within the blockchain space that to be one of the fastest evolving and quickest to move protocols. And you need a liquid democracy system to make the governance efficient to allow it to have, to allow the protocol to evolve really, really fast. Giving that, and this, put a pin in all this, because we're going to come back to the idea of periodic confirmation, and you have to understand the following system to understand why periodic confirmation is important. So Andrew, let's let's jump into these UX improvements and the ability for ICRC1 tokens to be hosted in your NNS wallet. And if you want me to share my screen, just direct me on where you want me to go.
You can open up the NNS actually if you like.
Yep.
But then I can also just talk through some of the features that were released last year. One of them was, and this directly connects to the portfolio page that I talked about, so we stay on the theme, is a feature was released last year to allow people, and I think this was the most requested NNS dev feature, which is to allow tokens to be imported. So here you see on the left a list of tokens, and on the right a list of neurons. Don't log in now, but if Kyle was logged in, he could add any ICRC1 token to his NNS dApp account. So you can add, because the tokens that we have here are either SNSs, which are governance-related tokens, ICP, also governance-related, or a few tokens that have ecosystem-wide importance, like CK Bitcoin and CK ETH. But we propose to the community that they can play around and have whatever token they want. So then now the NNS can be the home for people's meme coins as well. And the way to import a token to the NNS dApp is we have a tutorial on the innercomputer.org in the documentation. Maybe we can link that later. But you would have to find the ledger canister ID and then the index canister ID of the token, second of which is optional. And during the user flow, you click import token and you paste these IDs, and then next, yes, and then the token should appear on your account. However, this flow can be a little bit cumbersome, so we are soon going to propose an update to it where you can send a link to your friend or have a button potentially in a decentralized exchange that if you click, this whole token import flow will show up for you, and just have to confirm, maybe double check the canister ID, click confirm, and your favorite token will show up in your NNS dApp account. And after trading, you can securely store your tokens in the NNS. And I think this is, I'm using this feature daily, and I don't add new tokens daily, but I have my fun meme coins in the NNS dApp.
Awesome. Well, let's talk too about because it's an interesting idea of using the NNS as a wallet, but that obviously doesn't capture all that the NNS has to offer. In terms of, walk me through some of like the UX improvements that have happened in terms of governance in the last 12 months.
Yes. So if you go back to the article that you had before, which is the third one, I believe. This shows a nice screenshot. So one of the features I think introduced even early last year was called, or what we call, Actionable Proposals. So before that, there were a lot of SNS and NNS proposals scattered around in the NNS dApp, and you would have to remember which tokens you hold and which proposals you can still vote on. And since this feature's release, you just have this one page under voting, and you can scroll through and you see all the proposals that you personally can vote on based on the neurons you have and based on your past voting behavior. So this is kind of your voting homepage where you can just go through all the proposals and, either decide to ignore them if you're following or vote manually.
I love it. This has saved me hours and hours of time this year, just knowing where to focus my attention.
More time for charts.
Exactly. Less time searching for proposals to vote on, more time making more charts for the ICP community. Awesome. I love this. Again, this is in the blog that I posted in the comments. And then do you want to talk through some of the numbers associated with the NNS, Andrew?
Yes, sir. So the first article released at ended last year actually mentions that the NNS has now processed 11,800 proposals. Not overall, but these are the proposals that would count as forks on other chains. So these are code upgrades to both the protocol and also smart contracts hosted on their computer that are controlled by the NNS. And I believe now we are, since it's the end of January, we are over 12,000 proposals processed by the NNS, which is quite an impressive number. And it's also good to see that even though we have proposed improvements to how proposals are processed, which reduces the number of proposals as we don't have to, or the NNS doesn't have to submit so many at a time. It still kept the number of NNS proposals roughly constant. So it's a lot of upgrades and a lot of optimizations that have been made to the protocol last year. It's very exciting.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see that we've been averaging almost 10 proposals per day going through, and that we've been pretty steady. I'm sure the engineers at DFINITY and at other organizations doing proposals would like a break, but there's no break in ICP.
And I'm sure people who work at CodeGov would also like a break, but it doesn't seem like we're slowing down anytime soon.
I know we talked through the SNSs in the last live stream. Was there any other data that you wanted to go deeper into?
One number that I really like, and we can show this again, it's the bar chart in the middle, this one, yes. So while the number of SNSs roughly doubled from 23 to 24, the number of proposals that they submitted and processed had almost a six times or 6x growth. So that means not only we have more SNSs, but each SNS has been submitting more and more proposals. And that's why when we looked at the DeFi Lanos governance page, 18 out of the top 20 most active DAOs were hosted on their computer.
Yeah, it's without a doubt that, it's because ICP at its core is a DAO, but it should become as not a shocker that ICP is the home of DAOs in our industry. And then going back, that many SNSs, let me see if I can find it quickly, is a good reason why you need a good UX to find which of the SNSs you're participating in governance, which ones have new proposals, and how many you need to be voting on. So I love that. Laura, let's wrap it up, and then we're going to get to get to Luca and Luis. I want to wrap it up with just the periodic confirmation. You kind of alluded to this. I know in the article here we talk a little bit about it, but do you want to just give us some background on where we're at and what the future looks like there?
Yeah, certainly. So actually where we're at is it's now released. So I guess by the end of, because it was a view back to the last year, this wasn't the case yet, but early this year, I think we put together the final pieces. So the idea of this feature, as we now kind of explained what this following or liquid democracy is we need kind of two sides for governance to be successful, right? We absolutely need good neurons, or known neurons as we call them, who look at the code well and make conscious decisions on which proposal should be adopted and not. But we also need to make sure that those who follow those neurons make good choices on who are the neurons that are followed. So even if you don't have time, to look at the 10 proposals a day, you should still make sure that whoever gets your voting power will make something good out of it, right? So we kind of need both of these sides. So when we'll talk to our guests here, Luca and Luis, I think we'll cover more like what it means to be a good known neuron and why, the governance system relies on them heavily. But the periodic confirmation was more about the other part. So the idea is that neurons cannot just kind of be created once, set up following once, and then disappear forever. But rather, the idea is that you should really regularly kind of think about, should I maybe change my following, or at least confirm that what I currently have is still okay? That's why we call it periodic confirmation. Periodically, you should at least confirm the settings that you have are still in your interest, but optimally also every now and then, update it. And so the idea is that if you don't do that within 6 months, then your neuron will start having adjusted voting power. So this will go down until it reaches actually 0 after 7 months. And then your following relations will also be removed. So then a neuron that is just laying around and touches for years would then have no voting power. So this is the basic idea. As I said, this was rolled out, and actually all the neurons were set up with a certain timer already. So normally you have between an action you take, you have 6 months to again take action. This can either be voting directly, because, if you vote daily, you shouldn't be punished for not following or not reconsider following. So you can either vote directly, set your following, or confirm your following, and you should do one of those things every 6 months. And I think what we wanted to call out in this opportunity is that this first reset, or the first time you will start losing rewards, will happen in the beginning of March. So a month before, the front end will start warning you. But now it's a good time to take action. So, if you vote today or change your following today, maybe after you heard people talk, or just because you want to go back and have a look at your settings, then you again have 6 months, and this March deadline is not relevant for you. But if you haven't looked at your neurons in a while, then you should look at them before March, basically.
I love it. And just you're getting a lot of love. I don't know if you can see the comments, but you're getting a lot of love. People are really impressed. I'll just say to Boban that you're underselling Laura here. Let me pull
Thank
up.
you very much.
Salman has a comment about 6 month reconfirm for following neurons is really quite generous. I assume kind of referencing like, hey, 6 months is a long time. What was the rationale on that time frame for 6 months?
Yeah, so there has been a lot of discussions with the community in the last year, right? I think that's why also I was excited about this feature, because there was so much discussion around it and so many people with opinions, and we kind of had to come to agreement together. I think in the end, it was kind of a trade-off between people rightfully said, there might be periods, maybe you're on holiday, maybe you want to log off for a while, right? And kind of liquid democracy is also kind of an idea that you can do that, and you still kind of make good decisions like who I want to trust, and then it's okay if I don't look at the voting daily. So we kind of want to support that, but also we want to make sure you're at least a little bit staying up to date. And that's kind of how we ended up at 6 months. I think it was just a good middle ground for most people. Could it have been 5 months rather than 6? Absolutely, I think so. But I think in the end, it was also, I think we were actually even debating between, from 5 to 6. And then people like twice a year, that's also something you can actually remember. So makes it a bit easier than just, 5 is a bit, maybe a weirder time period. And that's why in the end, we ended up at 6 months.
I do love that, especially with liquid democracy, you can get into a scenario where you set it and forget it. And I think we would probably all agree that that's bad governance, is having a voting power that just isn't interested. And so I think this whole process really makes it so that there's a minimum participation requirement, right? And that's 6 months is the minimum you have to do. You touched a little bit about, I want to double click on something that you mentioned, the idea that like this was talked about with the community for a period of time. And that comes around to this idea of like a good proposal isn't just launched into the system and people have to vote yay or nay based on whatever gets launched. There's a whole process. But like, walk me through the process of like going from idea to proposal and getting it accepted.
Yeah, so I think a lot of time I think this was one example where it started with a motion proposal, actually a while ago, but we kind of, there were other priorities. So for a while we didn't have time to look at it. This is one way how it can start. I personally prefer it even more when it starts like just in the forum, because I think a motion proposal already puts some pressure to, react to, and then it's a bit unclear, like if I vote yes and it's still a vague idea, do I support the idea or the proposed solution? Or so there's a bit unclarity there, but somewhere someone has an idea and then usually what we do is we discuss it on the forum. We try to discuss pros and cons, and then oftentimes we want to spend a bit more time and come up with at least a high level solution how we could address, like once we agreed this is a problem, and then we want to come up with high level idea how we could have a solution. And then again, often people have opinions, they provide feedback. I mean, sometimes it's just about preference, but sometimes it's also about people pointing out things that maybe others have overseen, right? Trade-offs that need to be made. And usually after some discussion, once it arrives more at this, okay, now it's a matter of opinion, basically, do we want that or not? Then often we submit a motion proposal to governance. So motion proposal is the only proposal that will not change anything right away, but just be basically an opinion poll. So sometimes, like in this case, it's actually a second motion proposal because it was more concrete than the first one. The first one was more like, we like the idea, but we don't think we should do it exactly like it was proposed there. We need to clarify some things. So we had another motion proposal that after this discussion was kind of clarifying these things. And then, the proposal was adopted, which is interpreted as, okay, the majority of our governance would like to do this. And then basically we start implementation. We share a release plan, because a lot of people need to integrate with governance. And then this kind of takes a while, right, with different releases that people can catch up. And in this case, basically, we wanted to give a bit of time for all the front ends and integrators to be able to catch up after they had all the APIs. And then now in January, we kind of toggled the button to release the feature and make it active. Yeah.
Okay, so let's make sure everyone watching understands so that they can make sure they don't lose their rewards. If you haven't been in the NNS in a year, when do you have to log in by before your 6-month timer runs out?
I think before March. So I don't remember, because governance just divides the year evenly. It's something like 2nd March, but I would say just do it by the end of February and then you should be good.
And just to confirm, every time you do either like a manual vote, change your neuron followee manually, or just confirm that, yes, I'm following who I want to be followed, that all resets to 6 months, correct?
Absolutely, that's right. And if you're using the front end, you will also see a warning or maybe Andrew, that's what you wanted to say. But the front end will tell you that, it's now really time to do that. And you can also find how much time you have left if you go into the neuron. So, but yes, absolutely. I think the simplest rule is if you do that now, you should be good for 6 months. I don't know, Andrew, did you want to add something else?
Yes, like a small caveat. If you edit your following on a neuron, that will reset the timer for that specific neuron. But if you vote on any proposal once, it resets the timer for all of the neurons that voted, which is most often all of your neurons.
Okay, I love it. Great. So yeah, everyone, if you haven't been in the NNS recently, make sure you go in and take a manual action of some sorts. And we don't want you losing your rewards, and we want you active within the governance system. That's how governance works. Just as we were about to go, Luca's back. Okay, good. Dropped off right as we were getting to you. So I do want to move on to the idea. Laura and Andrew described the idea of the following system. Andrew explained that there's an entire layer, a governance layer that could be on top, where you're following a neuron that is actually made up of multiple entities. And so let's talk through that. The idea of there being no neurons of organizations and groups that are voting on specific topics. I'm joined today with Luca and Luis. Luca from CodeGov, Luis from Aviat Labs. And both of those organizations focus on specific topics within the governance system. Luca, I'm going to start with you first with CodeGov. Do you mind just giving me kind of like a quick 2-minute who you are, what CodeGov is, and the topics you guys like to vote on?
Yeah, cool, Kyle, thanks. So at CodeGov, we are a group of less than 10 people that take care of reviewing some of the topics of the proposals that are proposed to the NNS. And the idea is that with CodeGov, we want to show how we can decentralize the governance. So how we can make it possible for people to follow different organizations inside the NNS in order to vote or cast their vote for specific topics and proposals. And recently we also started doing this in the SNSs, so inside the DAOs that are created out of the NNS. and so that's the same idea, but we are going in that direction.
Love it. Love it. And then Luis, give us kind of the 2-minute who you are, what Aviate Labs is, and the proposals you guys focus on.
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, thanks for having me on here. So yeah, Luis here from Aviate Labs. At Aviate Labs, we work on making the experience of running nodes on ICP a lot easier. And we do this through providing tools to streamline the management process for node providers, as well as provide support services to help them troubleshoot any issues. Now, as you know, nodes are our day-to-day, and so it just seemed natural to vote on the specific topics of participant management as well as node admin, as these are the two proposal types that are largely focused on the information related to nodes, the data centers running the nodes, and the node providers behind the nodes as well.
Love it. And it kind of captures, again, another aspect of governance that's, I think, super important, which is you should have skin in the game, right? You guys are hosting nodes yourselves. You're very interested in the rules and regulations around hosting those nodes. And so therefore you want to be an active participant in the governance system. Lucas, so let's go through, let me see if I can bring my screen. I'm really interested. I think that people would really be interested in kind of understanding how you go about operationally, deciding on whether to vote approve or reject on a specific proposal. Let me bring up, was it this guy here? This is ad.
Yeah, this one looks one of those proposals. So what we usually do is that so first I'm just inside CodeGov. I'm just reviewing one of the topics that CodeGov does, and this proposal is one of belongs to that topic, which is the ICOS version election. And yeah, the idea is that as soon as there is a proposal on that topic, we typically receive a notification in our internal chats, or we have notifications directly to look at these proposals. And what we do is that we go through the changes that were made to bring up this proposal, which is typically looking at the commits that you see listed here in the proposal body. And the idea is that who makes these proposals should also list what they are changing in order to tell the NNS what they want to update inside, in this case, inside the ICOS. So the operative system, one of the operative system that runs on the nodes of the internet computer. And then we go through these commits. We check if inside the commit the changes were made and were, let's say, legit to the extent of what we can understand from those commits, because it requires a lot of expertise inside the ICOS, the IC protocol. So we go through the commit, and then after publishing our review, so after looking at the commits and telling the public what we think about those commits, then we cast our vote. And each of us inside CodeGov has a neuron, and CodeGov follows our personal neurons. So as soon as the majority of us votes for adopting or rejecting the proposal, then the CodeGov neuron automatically votes for that. And so that's a little bit how it works. Right now, it's mainly DFINITY proposing these topics, proposing the proposals in this topic. But the idea would be that more and more people and companies start contributing to the internet computer and making proposals themselves. So yeah, that's hope it was clear and not long.
Yeah, no, I think it captures it very well. I will point out that there's a concept of no neurons. I see in the comments a few people have talked about, like, how do you kind of like self-identify yourself? And you can see that there's different organizations or even individual community leaders who have requested that their own neuron be added to a list of known neurons so that new participants or even existing participants in the NNS can easily find and know what your neuron ID is to follow you. Luis, let's go over to the node participation. How do you guys evaluate every proposal that comes through and whether or not to vote to accept or to reject?
Yeah. So for sure. I just shared a link, and that gives an example of a proposal for a new node provider that is joining the network. Sorry, I just shared it just now. But basically similar to Luca, we have some monitoring set up. Oh, no worries. We could probably just refer to the self-declaration page.
Yeah, I have a problem in my browser.
No, you're good. But we get an alert that a new proposal gets shared for the topics of participant management and node admin. We review it now, maybe different to the ICOS version election. The topics the proposals for participant management is a bit more straightforward. And as Cal has showed, you see an example here. So this is a proposal for adding a new node provider to the network. And for this specific proposal type, we check a couple of things. One, that the documentation, which is their self-declaration and proof of identity, is available and published on the Internet Computer Wiki. So those are the two links. This is what I mean here. This is essentially a page on the Internet Computer Wiki that has all the self-declaration documents for the node providers. If you just, for example, click on, let's say, one of these, like what's a good example? Signum, for example, that's right there. You'll see there that the links to these documents are posted there. So making sure those are available. But the other important thing is that a hash of this document is available. And basically this hash is also included in the proposal. And we just make sure that when we download these documents and compute the hash, that it's identical, basically ensuring that the version that's available to the public hasn't been tampered with. For the majority of the known neuron grant program, the Neuron was set up to follow all three of us at Aviate Labs, reviewing the proposals. And basically, once we reached consensus, that Neuron would vote accordingly. So that's just an example of one type of these proposals. There's several others, but I like to think of it as more of an auditing role. That's because in this case, it's also node providers themselves typically submitting these proposals. Sometimes the information may be wrong, or the type of hash is the wrong format, or the information is posted in the wrong place. And just because the NNS is the source of truth, it's important that any information regarding the node providers or data centers or anything like this, that needs to be accurate. And that's what we typically try to make sure when we review these proposals.
You guys are the unsung heroes of governance. I hope what people gather from watching this is that there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to make sure that information is accurate, information hasn't been tampered with, and that these proposals make sense from a bunch of different variety of domains. And so I'm interested in learning, Luca and Luis, what draws you to do this kind of work? Why are you guys so active in governance?
That's what I was mentioning before. The idea that we need more and more contributors to the protocol, but not everyone can sit there, like you said before, Kyle, sit there and review all the changes made in the proposals, especially if they are really long and big, and also that require a lot of expertise. So I think the main drive here is to enable more people to implicitly, let's say, review stuff thanks to organizations like ours. But my end vision here would be that CodeGov becomes one of the contributors to the Internet Computer Protocol. So the idea is that while reviewing proposals, we gain a lot of expertise about the Internet Computer Protocol that someday we will be able to use to submit proposals ourselves. Of course, it's something that will take years because the internet, the protocol is really like complicated. And but yeah, that's my end vision for organizations like ours.
Perfect, love it. Luis, how about yourself?
Yeah, no, definitely. So following along the lines of what Lucas shared, it's one of the things, like the whole node provider side of the IC is still a bit vague, let's say. And I think through the process of doing these reviews and posting the reviews on the forum, community members are able to see like what goes on the scenes, learn how to actually become a node provider, but also how to, verify the details behind the nodes. So we know that ICP runs on these nodes, but these nodes are hosted in data centers. They're hosted by individual entities or the node providers. So we need to make sure that the information about them is also accurate. And then overall, just by making sure that we verify this information, it also puts a sense of accountability towards node providers, I like to believe, as they are then responsible for making sure that the information they share with the general community is correct, so that they can trust that everything is in good order on the node side of things.
Well, I, on behalf of the ICP community, just want to thank you guys for your work, because again, it's maybe unsung and it's a lot of work. I know, talked with many people participating in governance, and I know it never ends. As Andrew pointed out, the proposals just keep coming and coming and coming, and that's good because we don't want them to slow down. So I know we're coming to the end of the hour here, and we didn't even talk about anything coming up in 2025. So what I'm going to do is recommend anyone who wants kind of a precursor of what's happening on governance and ICP, or even just any other category, you can come here to internetcomputer.org/roadmap. You can see we have multiple milestones coming up for governance, as well as just, I think there's 9 total verticals that we're innovating rapidly. So check that out. And I want to just wrap up with a call to action. Check out CodeGov. You can see in Luca's handle there the website and the GitHub, and also check out Aviate Labs. You can see in Luis's title the calls there. And then finally, if you're participating in the NNS, make sure you get in and make some sort of manual action, either vote manually, confirm your followee, or reevaluate who you're following, because the periodic confirmation is live. Anyone want to wrap up on, did we not talk about, I feel like we got everything, but just in case, did I miss anything that we need to touch on?
I think we covered the most important things, yeah. And I mean, people are welcome to read on the blog and then, come back to us on the forum or whatever to continue the discussion, I think.
Love it. My brain, somewhere in my brain is saying, Kyle, you forgot this, but it's not serving it up to me. I'm sure once I end the live stream, it's going to come to me. But yeah,
then let's do another one.
We'll do another one. I mean, the governance is evolving fast, so that's great. Let me thank you guests. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate your dedication to governing the Internet Computer Protocol. And I want to say thank you to the audience. And just again, if you're not already participating in governance, we definitely encourage it. You get a say in the direction that the Internet Computer goes, and that's what makes this unique and what makes it work. So thank you guys, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks a lot, Kyle. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.